Welcome to On the Prowl, Florida Panthers Round 1 Playoff Preview, Episode 33. I'm your host, Bill. Today we're going to take a look at the first round matchup for the Florida Panthers versus the Tampa Bay Lightning. We're kind of going to do a mini recap of the season for both teams. We're going to take a look at where the Panthers stood this year in terms of how they played without certain players and what their records were. We're going to take a look at keys to victory for the Florida Panthers, and finally, going to wrap up with my prediction for the first round series. Now, as you're all aware of, the Florida Panthers will be taking on the Tampa Bay Lightning, and this is kind of a great synopsis of the matchup here. And this was from NHL.com, and I'm just going to highlight a few things here. Tampa Bay, 47, 26-8, will finish second in the Atlantic Division this season and have home ice advantage against Florida, 47, 31-4, which finished third. And we all know about the offensive guns for the Tampa Bay Lightning. Kucherov, who leads the NHL, 121 points. It's third straight season. He's had more than 100 points, including getting an NHL career high 144 last year. Lightning have 7 players with at least 20 goals. Braden Point, Jake Gensel, Brandon Hagel, Anthony Cirelli, Nick Paul, Oliver Bjorkstrand, and Victor Hedman is 6 on among NHL defensemen with 66 points. In goal, they're led by workhorse Andrei Vasilevsky, who is 38, 20-5 with a 921 save percentage. The Panthers, who won the Cup last year, of course, are led by Sam Reinhart, who has 81 points, 39 goals, 42 assists in 79 games. Captain Alexander Barkov is second with 71 points, 20 goals, 51 assists. And Matthew Tkachuk is third with 57 points, 22 goals, and 35 assists. Tkachuk has not played for Florida since February 8th, but is expected to be back for the postseason. We're going to talk about that here in a minute. In goal, they're led by Sergei Bobrovsky, who is 33, 19-2, with a 906 save percentage and a 2.44 goals against average. Okay, the Panthers and Lightning split the season series with 2 wins each. Barkov and the Panthers with 3 points, 2 goals, 1 assist, and Reinhart also scored 2 goals. Bobrovsky was 1-1-0 against Florida, allowing 4 goals on 57 shots. Point, 3 goals, 2 assists, and Hedman 5 assists. Each had 5 points, and Gensel had 4 points, 2 goals, 2 assists for the Lightning against the Panthers, with Vasilevsky going 1-2-0, allowing 6 goals on 78 shots. This is the 4th time the Panthers and Lightning have met in the postseason. Tampa Bay won the first 2 matchups, defeating Florida in 6 games in the first round in 2021, and then sweeping a second round series in 2022. Last season, the Panthers won their first round series in 5 games. One of the 2 teams have represented the Eastern Conference in the Stanley Cup final the past 2 seasons, with Tampa going to 3 straight from 2020 to 2022, winning it twice and losing in 2022, and Florida going the past 2, losing in 2023 before winning the Cup last season. Okay, that's kind of a good recap, I would say, of both of head-to-head competition, how each team did during the regular season. And so you get a chance to, definitely, I would encourage you to read this at your leisure here. Now, the games are all set. As you know, Tampa has home ice here. Game 1 and 2 are at Tampa. Game 3 and 4 at Sunrise. Game 5 at Tampa. Game 6 at Sunrise. And Game 7 at Tampa. And 5, 6, and 7 are if needed. Now, the NHL is really kind of dragging its heels here. And that's one thing I think we have in common with just about all the other NHL fans is there's been a lot of outcry that they only have Saturday schedule set right now. So dates and times will be decided by the NHL. From what I'm hearing from George Richard from Florida Hockey Now, it's going to be probably sometime Sunday. And the speculation is that they may do that Sunday afternoon to allow the Battle of Ontario happen on Sunday evening. So that remains to be seen. And when we get that information, we'll be sure to pass that on to you. But again, this is how things are going to set up in terms of the games here. Now, one of the things that I wanted to do was take a look to see how well the Panthers did with the core players in the lineup, meaning Matthew Tkachuk, Alexander Barkov, and Aaron Ekblad. and enabled the help of Chat GPT, and I said, and it came back to me during the 2024-2025 NHL regular season. The Florida Panthers played 54 games in which Matthew Tkachuk, Alexander Barkov, and Aaron Ekblad were all in the lineup. Listen to this. In those games, the teams achieved a record of 39 wins, 15 losses, and 0 overtime losses. Just an absolutely incredible record with a full, healthy lineup. Now, one of the things that, and I kind of want to stop right here for a second. We're gonna get on the Florida Panthers round one playoff keys to victory here in a second. Some things that I really wanted to mention. Now, I know a lot of people have been harping on certain players and their performance at this point in time, and I want to bring some things up here. Remember, and this is something that I think has been talked about quite frequently. I know I've mentioned it quite frequently as well too, is that the Panthers are a team that are built for the playoffs, are not built for the regular season. And I know in particular, two players have been singled out for their lack of offensive production in Evan Rodriguez and also Carter Verhaeghe. Now, Carter Verhaeghe's caught a little bit of fire lately, which is always good. But as even Paul Maurice has said, their time to shine is in the playoffs. Look at the performance last year from not only from Verhaeghe, but Rodriguez, especially in the finals. So I would say stay tuned. Their best hockey is yet to be played. And also, too, one of the other things is I know a lot of people criticism towards Seth Jones. And I think we need to maybe take a step back here because during the injury rash that we've had towards in the last half of the season and the last quarter of the season, our defensive core was hit pretty hard. Of course, we all know Aaron Ekblad was suspended for 20 games, but Dmitry Kulikov was out with an injury too. And Seth Jones had to really amp up his minutes. And kudos to him for doing that. And night in and night out, he knew he was going to be playing 22, 23, 24 minutes a game. It was going to be a grind for him. And I thought he performed admirably. Now, the other thing people need to keep in mind and bear in mind is this as well, too. The mindset of the Panthers, and I think that would come from Bill Zito, Paul Maurice, and the coaching staff, is they wanted to enter the playoffs in 2025 healthy. They weren't so much as necessarily concerned with home ice advantage as getting into the playoffs healthy. So you saw what you did last week against Detroit when they were away, when it was pretty much the Charlotte Checkers that were playing the Red Wings up in Detroit that game. And of course, the Panthers didn't win that game, but that wasn't to be expected. And I think, and they were very wise during the last stretch of games here over the last week or two to rest a lot of the key players. I know Sam Bennett was out with an injury. Reinhardt got some rest. Some of the other regulars got some rest as well, too. Barkov as well. And it was very smart on Paul Maurice's part to do that because he would rather enter the playoffs healthy versus having home ice advantage. And I think that really kind of bears out. And I think that's good for them. So going to move on here. And one of the things that I wanted to do here was when the Panthers were successful, there were some things that they did consistently well during the season. And that's one of the things that they're going to have to really bring to the table in playing against Tampa. Now, one of the things that I didn't mention on here that I do want to mention is I think it's important to get a split in Tampa, okay? Whether you win game one or game two, I don't care. But I think it's important to split in Tampa. And I think they very well can do that. Now, again, remember, Aaron Ekblad will not be available until game 3 because of his suspension. So with all that said, the first key is playing Panther-style hockey. And what is Panther-style hockey? I think you're all well-versed, but I'm going to go over it again as well. Being very aggressive on the forecheck, getting in there and getting after those pucks after shooting in the zone here. Creating offense off of defense. That's one of the things I think is a hallmark of the Florida Panthers. They do so very well on creating offense off their defense. It time and time again, they do that incredibly well. And the other thing is to clear the zone quickly, not spend a lot of time in the defensive zone. Get the puck, get it out there, and get into the offensive zone. Some of the other playoff keys to victory here, don't get involved in a track meet. Don't let Tampa sucker you into their style of game, because it really is a lot of they have a lot of fast players, and we're not necessarily as fast as them, and you don't want to get involved with a track meet with them. It will not bear out well for the Panthers. So stick to your style of game. Don't get involved in a track meet. Don't let them sucker you into that. And it's very easy, and I've seen teams do that historically through the years, not only the Panthers, but other teams as well that I've followed. They've gotten suckered in to the other team's style of play, which is usually a fast style of play, and they can't keep up. It's not their style of play, and it doesn't bode very well for them. Now, one of the things that the Tampa Bay Lightning do very well, and they're very famous for that, and you can see if you've watched any of their games, they love to do these long stretch passes, okay? Just these insane passes, and they're very good at it, okay? That's one thing I think is a hallmark with them. They have done exceptionally well with that, and I think if the Panthers limit those and intercept a lot of those, they'll really cut down on these chances now. And also, too, it also cuts down on getting players behind our defense. So if the Panthers can do that successfully and limit these stretch passes, you're not going to prevent all of them. But if you can prevent a majority of them, you're really going to increase your chances of having a favorable outcome in the game. There is no question that Andrei Vasilevskiy is one of the best goaltenders in the NHL. He is absolutely fantastic. I'll never forget when he came in, I think it was in 2017, when it was Bishop at the time, got hurt, and he came in. He was the backup for Tampa, and he ran with it ever since then. And he is an exceptional goaltender. And you really, if he sees that shot, he's going to make that save. So a couple things that the Panthers need to do, and I think what will be a big key to that is getting Matthew Tkachuk back and getting a net front presence. You need to screen him, okay? If you don't screen him, if you don't get a net front presence, if you don't get him distracted, he's 9 times out of 10, he's going to make that save. Now, one of the other keys to victory here is, Tampa does have a very high octane offense. As I read previously, I think, how many 20 goal scorers they have for this season. And, they have a couple 40 goal scorers, but their defense has been suspect. And I think that's one of the reasons they play the way they do with these stretch passes, and their speed kind of masks one of their shortcomings. And one of their big shortcomings is their defense. So I think if you can go ahead again and try to limit those stretch passes and also take advantage of their suspect defense, and if we can get in some stretch passes and get behind their defense, I think you're really going to have some favorable outcomes. And again, one of the things that you need to do, and I can't emphasize this enough, is to get somebody in front of Vasilevskiy, to screen him, to get in front, have a net front presence there to distract him, because that's going to be the way you're going to be able to score goals and win games against the Tampa Bay Lightning. Obviously, this one goes without question. Stay out of the penalty box. It seems, other teams will agitate certain players, and they'll get away with things, and then when they try to retaliate, they get called for penalties. And I've seen this time and time and time again as I've watched hockey through the years. And I think it's very important to maintain a level of discipline on some of these hits. If you get swiped at, if you get a high stick, if you get hooked, these kind of things, and they're missed calls, go with the flow, okay? Because they won't be able to get away with it forever. So just keep on going. And if Paul and the coaching staff want to yip at the officials about them, let them do that. Don't be the ones, for the players, don't be the ones to go out there and complain to referees, because lately, more often than not, they've been assessing penalties to players that have complained to them. So you need to be really, really careful and watch that. Now, another thing is shot selection and accuracy for the Panthers. And I've noticed over the past few weeks, and again, realize too, we didn't really have our primary core lineup in a lot of the times, and a lot of their shot selection was not very good. And my whole big philosophy, if I was an NHL coach, is from the blue line, you should be able to hit the net, or should be able to get really close to hitting the net in front of the net. And I noticed a lot of our shot selection over the past couple of weeks has not been that accurate and has not been near that net. And I think that's something that they need to work on and practice, because I think a better shot selection, you're going to allow a chance for deflection goals. And if you ask any NHL goaltender, and I know I've said this before, if you ask them, they will tell you the hardest goal to defend against is a deflection goal. It's almost impossible because directions will change because they're tracking that puck as it comes in off the shot, and there's a player in front of the net, deflects it, and boom, it's in the net. So that's one of the things I think the Panthers need to work on is that shot selection and accuracy. Wrapping things up here, with all of this being said, if the Panthers can follow this formula, and like I said, I would like to see them get a split in Tampa. I don't expect for them to win both games. Obviously, you don't want to lose both games. You want to get a split. You want to come back to Sunrise and have a chance to win the 2 in Sunrise. I see this going 6 games, and I see the Panthers winning this in 6 games. And one of the things I think is going to be a key in the Panthers' favor is, again, I think Tampa's defense is suspect. It's been suspect all year. You've taken a look at some of the stretches where they've had a rough patch where they've lost 3 or 4 games in a row. And a lot of those have been high-scoring games, and that's because teams have gotten behind their defense and have been able to beat Andrei Vasilevskiy. When their defense plays well, he plays well. And when they're doing the stretch passes, he's playing well. But if you can get behind their defense and you could be able to make a point, Andrei Vasilevskiy is good, but he's not superhuman. And if you have a lot of puck movement, get behind the defense, you can create opportunities to win games. So I really think the Panthers are going to have a favorable outcome in this series. I think they're going to win in 6 games. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to be a cakewalk. You're not going to see teams winning 5-1, 6-1, 7-1. These are going to be 2-1, 3-2, 4-3 type games. They're going to be nip and tuck all the way during these games. And the Panthers and Lightning, they need to pay attention to the games. Nobody's going to have an easy time of it, neither team, okay? But again, I say in the end, I said because I think we'll be 100% or as close to 100% as possible with everybody back. And I want to make a comment here before we kind of wrap things up, is Matthew Tkachuk has been making the rounds with social media, and he's pretty much been saying just about everything you want to hear, except he said, well, there's something I can't say right now. And I think that has to do with his long-term LTIR status, and I think that's because of the NHL. And technically, he can't come back until the playoffs start, and that's an NHL rule, and there could be fines and things involved. So he needs to be real careful with what he's saying. But I think if he was able to, he would say, yes, I'm going to be able to play game 1. I don't think there's going to be any question about that. And a healthy Panthers team as close to 100% as possible. I like their chances against any team in the NHL right now. I really do. But, these are going to be playoffs are hard. They're difficult. You have to win 16 games. You got to start off 1 game at a time. And remember, just because you lose that first game, don't look at how they play. And that's one of the things I think I've been doing a lot this season is listening to what Paul Maurice has to say. And he gets out a lot of positives from these games. And that's what he shares during his post-game conferences. And I think that's one thing that you want to look for, especially if they lose game 1. If they say lose game 1, 2-1 or 3-2, look at the positives. Look at how they created offense. Look at how they were on defense and so forth, and see how they can build upon that for a better game 2. And one of the other things is they need to start well for game 1 and game 2. They can't fall behind. Especially being away, it's going to be very important to get off to a fast start. And I would love to see them. I mean, like I said, I would expect them to split, but I would like to see them get the first goal because Tampa's crowd can get very loud. I've been to Amalie Arena many times. It's a loud, noisy environment, and if you can shut their crowd down, you're winning half the battle right there. So stay tuned for all of this. We're going to have playoff coverage coming up during the weeks here. I think what I'm probably going to be doing is some type of mini wrap up after each playoff game and get that out there to you, just so you can have an update. Now, that may not be until like the next day. That may not be that night after the game. It may be the next day. I think that's what we're going to do here. So, the goal is I want to see the Panthers playing in June again. And I want to see them lifting the Stanley Cup again in June. But it's a long road to hoe, 1 game at a time, 16 wins, and it's all going to start this weekend. Look forward to all this. Thank you guys also, too. I want to appreciate all you guys who have subscribed lately and are following us on social media, and also are subscribing to our podcasts out on Podbean and Apple and Spotify. Thank you guys so much. Really appreciate that. The listenership and viewership is way up, and I really appreciate that. And I want to thank you all. And remember, guys, it's always a great day for Florida Panthers hockey. Time to hunt and wear red.